Hey everyone out there prepping for your UPSC exams. We're diving into something pretty crucial today. Keeping those current events in mind for your mains. And hey, maybe even for prelims, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So SpaceX, Starlink, you've heard of them, right?
Of course.
Big news lately. They're partnering up with some big names in Indian telecom.
They're telling Geo.
Right, Airtel and Geo, and this is huge. Not just another tech thing. It's going to have a ripple effect.
Absolutely. Big implications for India moving forward.
Now think about it. A lot of us in the cities, we've got pretty good internet, right? High speed, no problem.
Yeah, pretty much.
But go out to the rural areas, the remote places.
Totally a different story.
Yeah, completely. Limited cell service, if any, and forget about fiber optic cables.
Not even a thought.
So these Starlink deals, they're being looked at as like a game changer for all those folks, bringing them into the digital age, finally.
Yeah, that's the hope.
But, and here's the thing, our mission today, using some recent stuff from the Hindu, is to go beyond the hype. We want to understand, really understand, how these partnerships could actually change things. I mean, we're talking reshaping India's whole digital scene,
Right.
affecting economic growth. What does it mean for national security?
Yeah, that's a big one.
And even, think about it, influencing how India interacts with other countries on the world stage.
It's all connected.
Exactly. So as you're studying, thinking about all this, are you thinking beyond just like faster internet in villages? I mean, it's got to be more complicated than that, right?
Oh, way more. It's layers upon layers.
So let's start with the basics, the money side of things. What are the immediate economic, plitzes we see here?
Okay, well, purely from an economic perspective, these partnerships, they make a lot of sense for everyone.
Okay, good. Break it down for us.
All right, so for companies like Airtel and Geo, this is a huge opportunity.
In what way?
They can suddenly reach all these customers in remote areas. Yeah. Without having to spend a fortune, laying down physical cables everywhere.
Right, that infrastructure cost is massive.
Exactly. So it's like they're skipping a whole step technologically.
And catching up instantly almost.
Yeah, and it's going to significantly increase the number of people they can reach, their potential customers, like really quickly.
So tapping into new markets without breaking the bank, that's got to be attractive.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Now, flip it around. Why is Starlink so eager to do this? What's their motivation?
India is huge. It's a massive market, and most of it's untapped in terms of this technology.
Right.
So they're partnering with giants, Airtel and Geo, and instantly they've got access to millions of potential customers.
Makes sense.
Something they couldn't do on their own, not without spending years and tons of money. Plus, let's not forget, navigating regulations in India.
Oh, yeah, that's never simple.
It can be a real maze.
Lots of red tape.
Yeah. And by teaming up with local companies, they get that expertise. They know the ins and outs, the loopholes, how to get things done.
So smoother sailing through the bureaucracy.
Exactly. So economically, it's a win-win. Everyone benefits.
Okay, so good for business. But we talked about this going beyond just money, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Geopolitics, strategy, it's heavy stuff.
Yeah, big time.
This isn't just about connecting people. It's way bigger than that.
It definitely is.
Because in today's world, communication networks,
They're essential.
absolutely essential for everything. For a country to function, I mean, governments need to communicate.
Of course.
Disaster response, military operations. I mean, think about it. If those networks go down.
It's chaos.
Yeah. So India, depending on an American company for satellite internet.
It raises some flags.
Yeah, some serious questions.
About control.
Yeah.
Ultimately about sovereignty. Who's really in charge of this vital infrastructure?
A foreign company. That's a risk.
It definitely is.
Are there other geopolitical angles we should consider with this partnership?
Stepping back, looking at the bigger picture, India choosing Starlink.
Over, say, developing their own tech.
Yeah, or going with, say, a Chinese company. There are options.
Right.
This sends a message. It suggests that India is leaning towards,
The West.
closer to the Western democracies. And that's in line with India's overall strategy in the Indo-Pacific region. It's like saying, these are the partners we prefer when it comes to critical tech.
So it's not just about the tech, but about who's providing it.
Exactly. The politics behind the tech.
Okay, now let's dig into something else we touched on earlier. That potential for monopoly. Starlink, they've got, 7,000 satellites up there?
Yeah, something like that, in low Earth orbit. So that's closer to Earth than the traditional satellites.
Okay, so they're first, basically.
And that's a big advantage. I mean, look at their competition. OneWeb, they have some, but way fewer. And Amazon, They're working on Project Kuiper, but that's still in the early stages.
So Starlink is the 800-pound gorilla in the room.
Pretty much.
And that's a worry.
Well, think about it. This kind of concentrated power, it comes with risks.
Okay, like what?
Less competition, for one. That can mean higher prices for everyone.
Yeah.
And less incentive to, innovate, make things better.
Because they're the only game in town.
Exactly. And then there's the dependence on a single company. I mean, they control this essential infrastructure. They could have, I don't know.
A lot of power.
Yeah, maybe even nation-state level influence.
That's a scary thought. A private company with that kind of sway.
And remember what happened with Ukraine last year?
Refresh my memory.
SpaceX. They actually restricted Ukraine's access to Starlink temporarily.
Whoa.
They had their reasons, of course. But it shows you what's possible. A private company making decisions with huge geopolitical consequences.
So that raises a big question, right? Should a private company have that much control over something as important as communications?
It's a debate we need to have.
Absolutely. And this brings us to that idea you mentioned, the digital sovereignty framework. Explain that a little more.
All right, think of digital sovereignty as the ideal situation.
Okay.
A country has both economic benefits and control over its own digital stuff. China, they're trying to do this with their Gowong constellation. They want it all state-controlled, so they're not reliant on anyone else.
So digital sovereignty is like the ultimate goal.
You could say that, being independent, but also benefiting economically from it.
So where does this partnership, India and Starlink, fit into this framework?
Right now, it's more like market dominance.
What does that mean?
Starlink, they're dominant. They provide a valuable service, generate economic activity, but the control.
It's not really there.
Right. India's reliant on them.
Now, what about India's own space program? The satellites they already have up there.
That's more like a strategic asset.
Okay, explain.
They might not be making as much money as Starlink, but India has control. They use their satellites for communication, for monitoring things, all sorts of vital stuff.
So a degree of independence there.
Yeah, definitely. But scaling it up, making it commercially viable, that's still a work in progress.
And that last category, marginal presence. Who's that?
That's like Amazon's Kuiper project right now. They're just starting, not a lot of satellites up there, so not much economic impact and not much geopolitical influence either.
So they're playing catch up?
Yeah, for now.
All right, long term, what's India's goal here with its digital infrastructure?
They've said it themselves. They want digital sovereignty.
Makes sense?
They want to build their own with ISRO leading the way, a fully functional, commercially viable satellite infrastructure.
But that's not going to happen overnight.
No way. It's a long game. It takes money, research, time to deploy everything, get the tech working perfectly.
Okay, now, Airtel and Jio, we've talked about them. They're the partners in this Starlink deal.
Yeah.
One big name is missing, right?
BSNL.
Yeah. And they've got a huge footprint, especially in rural India. That's where Starlink wants to expand, right? So why isn't BSNL involved?
It's a good question. And their absence is...
Kind of strange.
Yeah, you could say that. They're a state-owned enterprise, strong presence in rural areas. They could have been key, making sure the government had oversight, aligning things with national strategy.
So more public control, potentially faster rollout in those underserved areas.
Exactly.
So why are they sitting this one out?
Officially, no one's saying.
Unofficial.
Well, BSNL's had financial problems. That's no secret.
Right.
But strategically, some might say it's a missed opportunity. A chance for the government to be more involved, maybe even push for developing homegrown technology, working with Starlink,
So a missed chance to boost India's own capabilities.
Potentially.
Okay, we've covered the economics, the geopolitics, the whole sovereignty thing. But practically speaking, what are the hurdles, the challenges ahead? And what about the future of all this? How do we manage satellite internet globally with all these new players coming in?
There's a lot to think about. Okay. Affordability, accessibility, that's huge. Starlink promises high speed, but can people afford it?
Right. Especially in rural areas where incomes are lower.
Exactly. The user terminal, the monthly fees, it all adds up. And if it's too expensive...
It defeats the whole purpose.
Yeah. So maybe the government needs to step in, offer subsidies, but then can they sustain that? Is it financially viable long term?
So pricing needs to be carefully considered.
Yeah, different tiers, affordable packages, that's got to be part of the equation.
Okay, so cost is a big one. What else?
Space traffic. Think about it. Thousands of satellites going up.
Getting crowded up there.
Yeah, and the risk of collisions, space debris.
Space junk.
It's a real problem. And if things get out of control, it could create a domino effect, Like one collision leads to another and another, and pretty soon whole sections of space are unusable.
Whoa, seriously?
Yeah, it's called Kessler syndrome. And it wouldn't just affect communications, it would mess with weather satellites, scientific stuff, everything.
So we need rules like traffic laws, but for space.
Absolutely. International cooperation is key.
Yeah.
We'd have to manage this or we're all going to
Yeah.
suffer.
And finally, global internet governance. You mentioned that. What's the deal there?
Look, with these private companies like Starlink,
They're changing the game.
yeah, they're the new kids on the block. And we need to figure out, globally, how to regulate all this.
What kind of rules do we need?
Well, we need to prevent monopolies, right? Make sure one company doesn't control everything.
Right. Competition is good.
And national security. Can't have one company holding all the cards, potentially shutting down a whole country's communication.
Like what happened in Ukraine.
Exactly. And then, think about censorship, restricted access. These are all things we need international agreements on.
So it's a whole new world, and we need a whole new set of rules to make sure it stays fair and open.
Yeah, technology is moving fast, but governance needs to keep up.
All right, let's sum this up. India partnering with Starlink, it's a big deal. Lots to consider. What's the key takeaway for our listeners, thinking about their UPSC exams?
Okay, main takeaway. This partnership, it's a potential solution for India's digital divide.
A way to connect everyone, finally.
Yeah, but it's not simple. There are economic benefits for sure, but questions about sovereignty, strategic considerations, India has to weigh it all carefully.
So it's a step forward, but with some potential pitfalls along the way.
Exactly. And India can't just rely on foreign tech forever. They have to build their own capabilities too.
That long-term goal of digital sovereignty.
Right. It's a balancing act, using global tech for progress, but also building their own for independence and security.
It's like they need to be smart about how they engage with the world technologically.
Absolutely. Can't just jump in without thinking about the long game.
So for all of you out there studying hard, this is the kind of stuff that comes up in those UPSC exams. Think about it. The pros and cons, the short term versus the long term, the need for progress, but also the need for self-reliance. What's the right balance for India?
It's a tough question.
Yeah, but it's a question you need to be able to answer.
It's about understanding where India fits in the world, technologically, economically, strategically. It's complex.
And it's going to shape India's future.
Definitely.
All right, folks, that's our deep dive into the Starlink partnerships. We use some great reporting from The Hindu to break it all down for you. Hopefully, you've got a better grasp on this whole issue now.
A lot to think about.
Yeah, for sure. If you found this helpful, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more of these deep dives. And if you've got questions, drop a comment below. We're always happy to dig deeper into the stuff that matters to you.
Absolutely.
Thanks for tuning in.
See you next time.